Hello, I'm Don Hall. This is Don Hall Works YouTube channel, and I'm at the Chartreuse Muse Art Gallery, Modesto, California. And I'm with Sandra Veneman, who is an artist and the owner of the gallery. Say hello, Sandra.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Don, for inviting me. Okay, so here we are in our beautiful clay space at the Chartreuse Muse Gallery, and I'm going to show you one of the long ladies here and how I created the legs. I'm going to be rolling it out through the slab roller, adding the texture plate. All right, the clay I'm going to be using is a whiteware. It's a low fire but can go a little high fire. I like it because it's white when it's fired, and it ends up having a very nice glaze reception, and the color shows up well. I've made a sheet of clay that's fairly thick, tapered it at one end. I'm going to be putting it between the canvases on the slab roller. I've set the slab roller to about a quarter of an inch, and I'm going to slowly roll it through. I'm going to roll it through make sure that it's nice and smooth. And this is our first slab. Okay, so the slab has been rolled through one time. I am going to remove the canvas texture off the surface of the clay. I'm going to take my texture sheet, which is actually used for fondant in cake making. I'm going to put the texture plate down, put the canvas over the back of the texture plate, and run it one more time through the slab roller. I'm going to do it slowly so that texture plate has a chance to get pushed into the clay, because I did not change the clay settings thickness, because the texture plate is going to take a little bit of that quarter inch that I had it set to. So when I pull the texture plate off, it reveals a beautiful texture. You're going to want your clay to be slightly firm. Wet clay will stick to the texture plate, so it's best if you roll your slabs out and let them sit a little bit. In this case, I used a clay that was a little bit firmer. Okay, so here you can see the clay before I'm forming it into the tubes, but you can clearly see it's the same texture that these legs have been made from. Okay, so here I have the textured piece of clay in front of me, and of course we want that texture to be on the outside of the tube of clay. So what I'm going to be doing is flipping the texture to be down. I need to take a ruler or a straight edge, and I need to make the cut I make here needs to be exactly perpendicular to the piece of clay, so I can get the most length out of the piece of clay I have here. The next thing I do is I take my dowel and I put a piece of plastic over it. My favorite plastic to use is dry cleaning plastic, because it's so thin and very pliable. It doesn't stick on itself like handy wrap or anything like that. And we need to put the plastic between that and the dowel in order for the clay to come back off of the dowel. And you'll see that it becomes very apparent. I'm going to flip the clay up onto the dowel, rolling it in on itself, and I'm going to push it until that piece of clay makes a slight mark. And I know that that's going to be long enough for to wrap around the whole cylinder, or to make the cylinder wrap around the whole dowel. I'm going to cut that. Okay, so now we have the seam to put our piece of clay together, and I'm going to take this scoring tool and rough up both sides where the clay is going to be joined. I add just a little bit of water to one side, and that seems to be enough to create wet clay that will join. So what I'm doing is I'm pushing the clay around the dowel to connect. I don't want to put too much pressure on this slab of clay that's wrapped around the dowel, because I want to keep the the clay tube as accurate to the size of the dowel as possible, because I will be making two legs, and both of the legs are going to need to be extremely similar if they're going to be the legs that go onto one of my sculptures. So you can see as I'm smoothing this out, you start to lose the definition of that clay, the plate. And I have a little bit of clay that continually needs to be, I need to get that nice and smooth down. I don't want to get rid of too much of my texture plate, but that seam does need to be together nicely. Okay, once I get the seam to be where I want it to be satisfactorily, I now need to create the pattern to make it look like that texture plate continued through. So I use a dull pencil, and that pencil can just kind of go along. It doesn't need to be the exact design that that plate was, but I do want to make it so that it's not too far off of what it should look like. Okay, at this point I'm ready to remove it from the dowel, so I'm actually just going to cut a nice straight bottom. You can see I'm just turning the dowel, I'm not pressing it down into the table, because if I do, I will stretch the diameter of the tube, and I don't want to do that. So since I'm making two of these, I need to make sure that I have a good measurement, and I need to be really exactly precise so that both of these, I want to make them both exactly 7 inches, and I just need to remember that it's going to be 7 inches. And then the other side, I carefully cut. Cut it completely off. And then to remove the dowel is really nice and simple because of the plastic. I simply twist the dowel a little bit, it slides out, and I'm left with the plastic. Now I can leave the plastic in there until the clay firms up a bit and then remove the plastic later. But otherwise, it's really easy to remove the plastic. I just kind of twist it and it comes out. And now I have a nice, almost looking extruded dowel with a beautiful texture on it. All right, so before we get over to the texture plates and what they're all about, I wanted to show you some of the dowels and the cardboard tubes that I collect. Some of them are from giant plastic rolls all the way to wrapping paper rolls. The dowels, you'll see, I have marked in different colors because when I'm working, I'm not always thinking about the size of the dowel exactly, but the color. I can just grab the color of the dowel and use it to make my legs. And I also wanted to show you, these are a few pieces, the dowels that are completed. These are bone dry, these are bisqued already, and these are ready to be glazed and all ready to go. Okay, so I wanted to also go over what texture plates are and how I use them. Texture plates obviously are something that I roll through the slab roller, not always. Sometimes I will use a rolling pin on a slab of clay if I'm doing something much smaller. But I've brought an example of a lot of different texture plates here for you to take a look at. There's so many different places where you can find these. This was from a baking store. It's a cake decorating store. It's the fondant sheet, like I was telling you. This is the one that I used earlier in the video that you got to see. There are stencils that are used for spray painting designs onto walls, onto pieces of furniture and that kind of thing. I've used that here. All the way to kitchen aid accessories. This is just one of those foam rubber mats that you can put in a drawer with your utensils. A piece of screen door makes a beautiful texture. Here's a unique one. This is a texture plate. I'm going to pull it out so you can see. This is a texture plate that is actually sold as wallpaper for dollhouses. And you cut it to the size that you want, and you can put it into the dollhouse and glue it onto the wall. But the nice thing is both sides of the texture plate have a different design on it that you can use. There's a lace placemat. This is something that I got in a stamping box, but I thought it was so interesting I held on to it so that I could push it into clay sometime. Almost looks like a flower or center of a flower. This is also a sheet that is often used. It's metal, it's aluminum. It's often used to build metal pieces, but I liked it for the texture that it had. So this is a great piece to use through the slab roller as well. And then I wanted to also show you, this is a piece of printmaking block that you can carve into and create your own pattern. And once you have this, you have it for so long. It's a surface print, but you can also put it through the slab roller or push it into the clay. A similar is the Indian cloth fabric printing blocks make beautiful designs into clay as well. And these are very similar, I think, because of the way that they're carved. I also use a large number of commercial stamps. I can create my own pattern by putting them all together, or little medallions here and there on different pieces of clay, all used to kind of culminate in doing those legs and different parts on the Long Lady project that I've done. Look in your packaging. I find all kinds of things. I find some fun styrofoam packaging can be pushed into the clay and make some great texture as well. So just have fun looking for some of those things, and you can reuse, recycle all of those.